What happens when you stop masturbating after 60? The 7 hidden dangers no one warned you about. They won't tell you this, but it matters more than you think. Let me ask you something that most doctors probably won't. Have you quietly stopped touching yourself in recent years, thinking, well, that part of life is behind me? If so, I need you to hear this from me, not in judgment, but in care. I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott. I've been working with older men for over 3 decades, guys just like you, guys who've raised families, worked hard, made it through storms, and now face something no one really warned us about: how silent aging can be, and how dangerous it becomes when we ignore the most personal parts of ourselves. And here's the blunt truth. If you've stopped masturbating in your later years, your body may already be paying the price, quietly, gradually, and far beyond what you expect. Now, I know this topic, it sounds like something whispered behind closed doors, or maybe never spoken at all. But what if I told you that simple, private act of self-intimacy could affect everything, from your prostate, to your memory, to your immune system, and even your sleep? One of my patients, 72, healthy, sharp, he came to me frustrated he was waking up 5 times a night just to pee. He thought it was just age. It wasn't. It was neglect of a function his body still needed. You see, masturbation in older age isn't about fantasy or youth. It's about function. It's one of your body's last remaining tools to regulate hormones, keep circulation flowing, stimulate the brain, and protect your dignity. So before we dismiss this as something for the younger crowd, I'd like to invite you, man to man, to listen in. Because what I'm about to share could quite literally change how you sleep, how you think, how you move, and how you feel about yourself in this stage of life. This is not about shame. This is about science. And more than that, it's about you. Ready? Let's begin. Consequence 1: declining prostate health and urinary function. Let's start with something that's rarely discussed until it becomes impossible to ignore: the prostate. A few years ago, I had a patient named Robert. He was 73, retired, still active, still sharp, but when he came to see me, he looked exhausted. "Doc, I'm waking up 4, sometimes 5 times a night to use the bathroom. I can't remember the last time I slept through the night." He thought it was just part of getting older. But here's what I gently told him, and what I'm telling you now. Your prostate is not just sitting there like an old part you can ignore. It's a living, functioning gland. It produces fluid, it contracts and relaxes, and just like any other organ, it suffers when neglected. When you stop ejaculating, and yes, that includes masturbation, that fluid builds up. It doesn't just vanish. Over time, it can stagnate, creating the perfect conditions for inflammation, swelling, and pressure on your urinary system. And that's when the problems start: weaker urine stream, frequent urges to go, disrupted sleep, feeling like your bladder's never truly empty. Worse, chronic congestion of the prostate can eventually lead to conditions like benign prostatic hyperplasia, which affects nearly half of men over 60. Left unaddressed, it can cause urinary retention, bladder infections, or the need for a catheterization. And yes, sometimes even surgery. Now here's something that may surprise you. A Harvard study found that men who ejaculated 21 or more times per month had a noticeably lower risk of developing prostate cancer. This isn't about chasing a number. It's about giving your body a natural way to maintain function. This isn't about youth. It's not about lust. It's not about fantasy. It's about function, maintenance, longevity. I've had patients who stopped traveling, who planned their outings around bathrooms, who couldn't sit through a movie because they feared the urgency. And all because this vital part of their body, the prostate, was silently neglected. So if you've noticed any of these symptoms creeping in, don't shrug it off. Don't chalk it up to just age. It may be your body asking, quietly, respectfully, for you to reconnect. Consequence 2: mental fog and loss of clarity. Now let's talk about something even more subtle, but possibly more distressing. When your mind starts to feel slower, foggier, off. Alan, a 68-year-old patient of mine, once sat in my office and said something that stuck with me. "Doc, I'm forgetting things, walking into rooms and not knowing why I'm there, losing my train of thought in conversations. I used to be sharp. What's happening to me?" It's a common concern. And sure, some degree of mental slowing is part of natural aging. But very often, there's more to the story. Because what Alan and many men don't realize is that sexual activity, including masturbation, supports brain health in real, measurable ways. When you engage in self-pleasure, your brain releases a chemical blend that includes dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. These aren't just about feeling good in the moment. They protect your brain, strengthen neural connections, and reduce stress hormones like cortisol, which in excess can damage memory and impair focus. When you stop engaging in sexual activity, your brain stops getting those neurochemical boosts, and slowly you might start noticing difficulty concentrating, forgetfulness, mental fatigue, low emotional energy. And here's something many overlook. Sexual activity also helps stabilize testosterone, a hormone that influences memory, decision-making, and your sense of vitality. When that disappears, it's not just your libido that drops, it's your mental drive, your spark. Now let me be absolutely clear. This isn't to say that a lack of masturbation causes Alzheimer's. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I've seen too many men withdraw from the things they love, from chess clubs, from books, from meaningful conversations, and they believe it's just aging. In reality, many of them are simply missing stimulation, not just physical, but emotional and neurological. One man told me after reconnecting with himself, "Doc, I feel more like me again. I didn't realize how disconnected I'd become." So if you've been feeling mentally off lately, just know you're not alone. And you're not broken. Your brain may just need a little spark, a little rhythm, a little signal that says, "Hey, I'm still here. Let's wake up again."
Consequence 3: emotional numbness and depression. Let's talk now about something many older men don't have words for. Not because it isn't real, but because we were never taught how to name it: emotional flatness. A patient I deeply remember, Michael, age 71, came into my office one winter afternoon. He'd lost his wife a few years prior, still lived alone, and looked healthy by most standards. But he sat down and said in a voice just above a whisper, "Doc, I don't feel anything anymore. Not sadness, not joy, just blank." He then asked, "Is that just part of getting older?" And let me be very clear with you, as I was with him. No, that's not aging. That's disconnection. What many people assume is just life slowing down can often be the body's emotional circuitry shutting down due to lack of stimulation and release. You see, masturbation isn't just a physical act. It's an emotional outlet. It's your body's built-in mechanism for tension release, mood regulation, and even grief processing. When climax happens, your brain releases endorphins, oxytocin, and other neurochemicals that lower stress and create feelings of comfort, connection, and calm. When that release disappears, especially during a time in life that's already prone to loneliness, stress, or loss, you risk slowly slipping into numbness. And depression in older adults isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like crying. Sometimes it looks like sleeping too much or not sleeping at all, losing interest in hobbies, avoiding conversation, eating less or eating too much. Life starts to feel gray. What breaks my heart is that many older men don't even realize they're depressed. They just assume this is what old age feels like. But in reality, their body is missing something it used to know how to access. One of my patients began a quiet practice of reconnecting with himself, not out of lust, but out of care. And 2 months later, he told me, "Doc, I finally feel human again." Not every low mood needs a prescription. Sometimes it needs a reconnection to your body, your rhythms, and the part of yourself you've quietly buried.
Consequence 4, poor sleep and nighttime restlessness. Now let's talk about sleep, or rather the lack of it. So many men in their 60s and 70s tell me the same story. "Doc, I can fall asleep just fine, but I wake up at 2 a.m. like a switch flipped. Then I lie around for hours, wide awake, staring at the ceiling." Sound familiar? A patient named Tom came in recently with those exact words. We did all the usual tests, no sleep apnea, no major red flags. But when I gently asked him about his intimate life, he looked away and said, "That part of me, that's long gone." But maybe it wasn't gone. Maybe it was just asleep and waiting to be awakened again. You see, what most people forget is that orgasm is a deeply hormonal event. When climax occurs, your brain releases a mix of oxytocin, prolactin, and endorphins, all of which help the nervous system shift from stress mode to rest mode. At the same time, cortisol, the stress hormone, drops. Your breathing slows, your muscles relax, your mind lets go. In short, your body becomes ready for deep, uninterrupted sleep. Now imagine that process being absent, not just for a week or two, but for years. What fills the gap? Tossing and turning, early wake-ups, restlessness, reliance on sleeping pills, or simply accepting exhaustion as your new normal? But chronic poor sleep doesn't just leave you tired. It slowly chips away at immune function, cognitive clarity, mood regulation, balance, and stability. One patient, after beginning to care for this part of himself again, told me, "Doc, I sleep like I did 30 years ago. I didn't even realize how much I'd been missing." That's what's so dangerous about this. Too many people mistake biological neglect for normal aging, and they suffer in silence, when sometimes all it takes is remembering what used to work naturally. So if you find yourself lying awake at night, tight in your body, racing in your mind, ask yourself, when was the last time I gave my body a full release? Not for pleasure, for peace.
Consequence 5, weakened pelvic floor and poor circulation. Now, let's get even more physical, down to the foundation of your body, your pelvic floor. Several years ago, I treated a retired firefighter named Carl. Big guy, proud guy. He'd spent his whole life running into burning buildings, lifting heavy equipment, saving lives. But now in his 70s, Carl was having a different kind of problem. "Doc," he said, almost embarrassed, "I'm leaking a little, and standing for more than 20 minutes, my lower back starts aching, hips too. It's like the base of my body is giving out." It wasn't just aging. It was weakness in the pelvic floor, a group of muscles most men never even think about until something goes wrong. These muscles sit at the base of your core. They support your bladder, your bowel, your sexual function. And during sexual arousal and orgasm, including during masturbation, they contract rhythmically. That's a workout, a signal, a form of maintenance.
Without regular stimulation, these muscles start to go quiet. Circulation slows. Nerve response fades. Tissue elasticity drops. Control weakens. You may not notice it all at once. Maybe it starts with frequent urges. Maybe a little dribble after you pee. Maybe trouble holding in gas or discomfort when you sit for long periods. And for some, it progresses into erectile dysfunction, pain during movement, incontinence, a loss of confidence in basic everyday functions. I've had patients skip social events because they're worried about having an accident. I've seen proud, independent men slowly become hesitant and withdrawn, all because the part of the body they thought they could ignore had quietly weakened. The truth is, when we stop stimulating the lower body, we're not just giving up pleasure. We're giving up blood flow, nerve activity, and the signal that says, keep functioning. And here's the good news. This kind of strength, it's not gone forever. Your body remembers. You just have to give it a reason to wake up again.
Consequence 6. Lower immune function. Now let's talk about something invisible until it's not. Your immune system. One winter, a longtime patient of mine, Jack, 69 years old, came into my office with a pale face and a raspy cough. "Doc," he said, "this is the third time I've been sick this season. Used to bounce back in 2 days. Now I'm down for 2 weeks." His diet? Decent. Sleep? Not perfect, but not terrible. Medications? No major red flags. But when I gently asked, "Jack, have you been sexually active at all? Even solo?" He chuckled awkwardly, then said, "Not in a long time, Doc. That part of me retired before I did." And I said to him, what I'll say to you now. Your immune system doesn't care about embarrassment. It cares about chemistry. Here's what happens inside your body during sexual activity, especially orgasm. Immunoglobulin A, or IgA, increases. This is a frontline antibody that helps defend your respiratory and digestive systems from viruses and bacteria. Endorphins are released, lowering inflammation, supporting healing. Circulation improves, helping immune cells reach where they're needed faster. It's not magic, it's biology. And when that biology is neglected, your body slowly loses one of its simplest, most natural defenses. That's why so many older adults who've disconnected from this part of themselves find that colds last longer, infections linger, energy drops, chronic inflammation creeps in. In Jack's case, we didn't start with medication. We started with reconnection to his body, to his rhythms, to the simple idea that caring for himself intimately wasn't indulgent, it was essential. 3 months later, he was back in my office, clearer eyes, stronger posture. He said, "I can't explain it, but I feel like my body's working with me again, not against me." That's not coincidence. That's a body getting the signal it's been waiting for. I'm still alive. Let's keep going. Consequence 7. Loss of body ownership and self-worth. I'll never forget something a patient once told me. He was 76, a retired school principal, sharp, educated, respected, but as he sat across from me during a routine exam, he looked down at his hands and said, "I don't feel like I live in this body anymore. I just inhabit it." It hit me hard, because that's what happens when we slowly give up the most intimate connection we have, with ourselves. When you stop touching your body, when you stop acknowledging its needs, you don't just lose sensation, you begin to lose ownership. And with that comes a slow fading of self-worth. Self-touch, even when gentle, even without a goal, is a signal to your brain and nervous system, this is still me. This body is still mine. I still matter. When that signal disappears, something else moves in. Apathy, shame, disconnection, the belief that this chapter of life isn't worth nurturing. And it shows up in ways you might not expect. You stop exercising. You stop dressing with care. You stop looking in the mirror. You start fading, not because you're dying, but because you've stopped engaging. One woman in her 70s, widowed for a decade, told me, "I haven't touched myself since menopause. I just stopped feeling like a woman." She paused, then said, "And the less I touched myself, the more I disappeared." Let that sink in, because your body, even now, is still listening, still waiting, still deserving of presence, affection, and dignity. Reclaiming that doesn't require youth. It doesn't require anyone else. It requires one thing: permission. Permission to come home to your body, to remind yourself that your worth did not retire when you did, that you are not just a body waiting to shut down. You are still here, and that alone is reason enough to care.
Final thoughts: reclaiming health, reclaiming intimacy. Let's take a breath and look at what we've uncovered together. When we stop caring for our sexual selves, even through something as natural as self-touch, a quiet cascade begins. The prostate swells and struggles. The brain loses clarity and drive. The mood flattens and depression creeps in. Sleep becomes restless and exhaustion builds. The pelvic floor weakens, affecting stability and control. The immune system fades in silence, and most painfully, you start to forget that this body is still yours. None of these things happen overnight, but they happen quietly, slowly, until one day you wake up and wonder where the strength went, the vitality, the spark. But here's the good news. It's not gone. It's just waiting. And the key isn't a prescription. It's a reconnection, a decision to no longer ignore the part of you that still wants to feel, to love, to live. So if this message spoke to you, I hope you'll do more than just think about it. I hope you'll act. Not out of shame, not out of urgency, but out of a quiet promise to yourself. I'm still here, and I still matter. And if this video helped you feel seen, even just a little bit, I'd love for you to let me know. Leave a comment, share your story, or even just say, "I'm still here." Hit that like button. It helps more people find their way back to themselves. And subscribe, because I'll keep showing up with the conversations no one else dares to have. This isn't about sex. This is about health. And more than that, it's about hope. So take your time, but don't wait forever, because your body is still listening, and it would love to hear from you again.